Dear students, this is again Madhu Kamra with a video lecture on Nikki Giovanni, who is America's legendary poet, and she enjoys a wide reputation with numerous collections of poetry too. Named at birth as Yolande Camelia Nikki Giovanni, she was born on 7th June 1943 in Knoxville, Tennessee, and was nicknamed Nikki Rosa by her elder sister Gary. As far as her writing contribution is concerned, she has written more than 24 books, nearly 30, three of which are New York Times bestsellers. She also wrote for children, and the popular ones are The Girls in the Circle, that is Just For You, 2004. Then you have Rosa in 2005. Poetry Speaks to Children, a celebration of poetry with a beat, which appeared in 2005. Lincoln and Douglas, an American friendship, which appeared in 2008. Hip Hop Speaks to Children, a celebration of poetry with a beat, which appeared in 2008. And The Grasshopper's Song and Aesop's Fable, which appeared in 2008. And also I'm Loved, which appeared in 2018. Now you have on your screen some quotes which are her signature words. First of all, you have her declaration. She says, "I'm just a poet. All I have is my words, so they have to be honest." About her writing, she says, "What I do to justify the air I breathe." Then she also says that for good reading, you need to read a lot. For writing, you need reading, a lot of reading. And she also says, an avid learner, there's always something to learn. Our imagination will change the world and make the world a better place. Then talking about what is a poem, she says, a poem has to say something. It has to make some sort of sense, be lyrical, to the point, and still able to be read by whatever reader is kind enough to pick up the book. Now, let me tell you what makes Nikki Giovanni a poet of noticeable singularities. So here you have some of these singularities on your screen. She is recognized as one of the leading Black poets of the new Black Renaissance. Talking about Black Renaissance, you should remember that it began on the streets of Harlem. And Harlem is a neighborhood in the upper Manhattan, New York. It was in 1920 that central Harlem was predominantly occupied by the blacks. And by 1930, the black populated and people, due to heavy migration from the West Indies and the southern US. And by 2019, nearly 55% of the central Harlem is estimated to be mainly of the blacks. So coming to Black Renaissance, you'll find that it helped African American writers to gain more control over the representation of black culture and black experience. And it also brought a lot of black narratives and black culture, indicating a bigger shift in culture altogether. So she projected Black Renaissance, and black love appears to be black wealth here. And Giovanni added sophistication to vernacular speech. And at the same time, you'll find that she used jazz extensively as a backdrop. Now, to talk about jazz, you'll find that like any other dance form, it has cultural roots. And you'll find that now it is primarily identified as American dance style. And it was brought to America by the African slaves. And you find that type of dancing with which jazz is associated, which is also called jazz funk, it's very close to hip-hop version of modern dance. It is also important to note as to what were the impressions that were formed on Nikki Giovanni and added to the sophistication that she exhibits in the contribution that she has made to the body of African American literature. She remembers Maya Angelou as the most phenomenal woman and wishes her a rightful place in literature. Now, coming to books, you'll find that she was also a peer to Margaret Walker, And she also made a long influence on Nikki in framing her ideas about feminism and about adhering to cultural roots and projecting it not as a compromise to whiteness but upholding the distinctiveness of blackness. Now, coming to the focus of a poetic oeuvre, you find that the focus is much on local space, and you find that she upholds the participation of the people, their ideas, their text, and the products in the global flow. And she also talks about the cultural diffusion, how internal and external migration has contributed to it. There's a contemporary environment in her writings, and this interconnects, geographies and makes airy boundaries. So there is a dual nature of hybridity where you have both the mingling of the blacks and the whites as substance of ideas, as substance of thoughts, a richness, and at the same time of distinctiveness by which they are identified. Then you have historical consciousness also, where you find that she talks about a location specific poetry as a search for origin, as a search for distinctiveness, as a search for one's identity within the whole world. So there's a lot of reinterrogation of the meaning of home, where you find that black woman talks about, where is she placed, and even though she belongs to the group of minority, yet you find that she is much more than mere fragmented identity, because as Judith Butler affirms that identities are made again and again. This is not a question of private struggle, but it is also a social term in which identities are made, remade, and then again made. So this way you find that when she talks about a contemporary environment, there is a web of a likeness and differences too. Now, in the reinterrogation of the meaning of home, you find that she talks about intellectual home, spiritual home, and then also community as a home, because with displaced labor, you find that there's a distribution of home, or you can say that there's a shifting concept of home. So this way you find that much is supported and articulated in terms of identity, in terms of environment, in terms of cultural diffusion, in terms of local space, and also in terms of historical consciousness. Dear students, now you have on your screen the poem Quilts. I want you to look into it, and poem announces the uselessness of old age by introducing the analogy of a faded tablecloth. It begins with like, so the similarity is drawn like a fading piece of cloth. The cloth which has faded, I am a failure, because the poem has I, it is a subjective poem. So, like a fading piece of cloth, I am a failure. The poet announces failure. Failure because it is now discarded, unwanted, neglected because of old age. So, no longer do I cover tables filled with food and laughter. Here, the tablecloth is the speaker, and it says that it no longer, that means that the tablecloth used to cover tables filled with food and laughter is a matter of bygone days. Those days have elapsed. And similar is the case of the poet. The poet has also become old. Therefore, the company of the poet is no longer a matter of laughter with a good spread of food. My seams are frayed. That is, the edges of the tablecloth is coming out. Its hem has fallen apart. My strength no longer able to hold the hot and cold. Here, the poet says that like the tablecloth, which is now worn out, it is almost torn. Likewise, the poet also, with aging, has become of little use. It cannot hold the hot and the cold. The hot and the cold are two adjectives which implies happy days and unhappy also. That is, this implies that the poet does not have the strength to do things that the poet could do before. I wish for those first days. The desire is there for the bygone days, the days which have elapsed, the days which will never come back. When just woven, I could keep water from seeping through. Woven, that is the texture, the weaving, was so tight that hardly water could pass through it. Likewise, the poet says that earlier she had the strength to battle the odds of life. And now, with the body aging and the strength gradually dying out, the poet does not have the strength to fight the hot and the cold. Repel stains with the tightness of my weave. That is, it could stop stains from appearing on its surface because of the tightness of the weave. When the poet was strong mentally, emotionally, and physically, she could keep the ills, at the same time, the distaste of life away from making any memory, from disturbing her. But now, with the old age, the poet has enough memories to recall how strong she was once upon a time, and then dazzle the sunlight with my reflection. The poet here says that she was strong enough to make even the sunlight appear dazzled by the reflection that she casted. This was the reflection of good spirits, reflection of strength, reflection of good deeds, and reflection of immense confidence. I grow old, though pleased with my memories. The tasks I can no longer complete are balanced by the love of the tasks gone past. So here, the poet is now the speaker. Tablecloth is put to silence. And now the poet says that she has grown old and she is happy with the collection of memories she has of the days, of the tasks that she could complete earlier. So here, her incapacity is matched with the capacity which she earlier possessed. I offer no apology, only this plea. So she says that I have nothing to feel sorry for. I'm not guilty. I'm not apologetic. And when I'm frayed and strained and drizzle at the end, please someone cut a square and put me in a quilt that I may keep some child warm. So here, again, the tablecloth comes in and says that when the tablecloth is completely out of use, it is strained, it has frayed ends, and at the same time, the water easily passes through it and stains appear on the surface. Then the tablecloth says that cut a square of the piece that is intact and put me in a quilt so that I can continue to be of some use. So here, the poet Nikki Giovanni says that we should not be cast aside because of our old age. We should not be put aside. We should not be neglected. Rather, we should be used for some or the other cause, maybe for the good of the small children who need nursing, who need attention, who need care. And the old people at home can be a good Philip for the same task. So, and some old person with no one else to talk to will hear my whispers and cuddle near. So, a worn out tablecloth has many stories to tell, so it should not be cast aside. Rather, it should be used for the quilt to keep a child warm. Likewise, The poet says that the kind of life that she lived, the kind of incidents she faced in her lifetime, she wants to take it to the child, maybe the grandchildren at home, so that they can learn more about them. And this way she can make those incidents appear refresh. So, and some old person with no one else to talk to will hear my whispers and cuddle near. And you also find that when old people have no one to talk to, they talk to themselves. They keep on speaking. So when you find an old person speaking to himself, then you find that at times people come closer to understand what the whispers imply. So with this, I come to the close of the poem, where you find that it is based on the psychological symptoms like distress of aging, and it also talks about age-related losses like physical strength, emotional vacuum, and then fading memory, or repeating the incidences again and again, that is fixed at one time zone. And then there's reduction in sociability also, where you find that they cannot go out and meet their friends, and equally their friends cannot easily come to them. So aging is a big loss to a person who is gradually disassociated from the world of activity, from the world of laughter, from the world of partying, and then good play also. And aging is characteristic. Physically, aging is characterized with wrinkles, gray hair, then bones shrinking, and then at the same time, slow thinking, and at times sluggish also. So, with this, I come to a close, and I think, students, this poem must be clear to you now. Thank you for paying attention to me.